Welcome to Influential Entrepreneurs, bringing you interviews with elite business leaders and experts, sharing tips and strategies for elevating your business to the next level. Here's your host, Mike Saunders.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Influential Entrepreneurs. This is Mike Saunders, the Authority Positioning Coach. Today we have with us Stephen Clausnitzer, who's the founder of Forever Labs. Stephen, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me, Mike.
Hey, you are welcome. So I'm interested in Forever Labs. The word forever is such a cool word, so I want to jump into what you guys do, but give us a little bit of your background and what your entrepreneurial journey has been like to this point in your career.
Sure. So I grew up around entrepreneurship. My grandfathers, both of them, started their own companies. I worked at my grandfather Clausnitzer's company growing up, and I think I kind of always knew that it was in my blood and that I would start my own company. I am the co-founder of Forever Labs. I'm fortunate to keep really good friends, and one of my friends is a medical physicist named Mark Katakowski, and we started Forever Labs together. But my journey was sort of predestined, I think. The coolest part of my journey, though, Mike, is that in 2017, we were part of the Y Combinator class, and Y Combinator is a tech accelerator out of San Francisco. Are you familiar with it?
Yes.
Yeah. So for those that aren't, they've launched companies like Airbnb, Dropbox, Reddit, Stripe, etc.
This is not just a thing that you go, cool, sign me up, I'll pay your fee. This is like, it's a privilege to be even included, and then you have to, earn your right to stay. I mean, it's quite the distinction.
Yeah, they always say, it's harder to get into than Harvard sort of thing. But we learned so much when we went through that program. It's really intense. And that, I think, as far as you asked about my entrepreneurial journey, I think that is when I was truly born as an entrepreneur, is when I went through that program. It was really wonderful. That's me. I'm sort of, when you start a company, like many companies have co-founders, and it sort of works best, I think, when there's a hacker and a haggler. Yeah. I would be the haggler, and my co-founder Mark is certainly the hacker.
The front office and the back office.
That's absolutely right. He's the guy in the lab, and I'm the one raising funds and growing the business out in the market.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm really pleased that you named your company Forever Labs as opposed to like what law firms will do with, the founder, co-founder's last names. Because could you imagine if it was Katakowski, Clausnitzer, nobody could ever say your name. So Forever Labs works.
Yeah, you're right. Thank you. It is a good name. People always ask what we do at Forever Labs. What we do is we will store your stem cells so that you can live healthier longer. And the next question people ask is, do you really think people can live forever? Because it's in the name. Yeah. I'm not really sure about that, but I think the name Live as Healthy as Possible Labs didn't have the same ring as Forever Labs. So
a little clunkier.
Yep.
So for someone who's a novice like myself, I've heard the phrase stem cells. So if you're going to preserve stem cells for someone, let's say today, what in the future could change to make them need to access their stem cells?
Yeah, it's a great question. So number one, just so people that aren't familiar with stem cells, they are sort of the building blocks of your body, right? Okay. And the unfortunate reality is that as you get older, these building blocks get compromised. You have less of them, and the ones that remain become damaged and less effective the older you get. And this problem accelerates with age. So that's the problem we're solving. We will bank your stem cells now while you're healthy, and you can access them later in life. As far as how you would use those cells, I'm not really sure, and because it would be particular to the individual. I can tell you there's over 1,000 clinical trials using the types of cells we store. They're most commonly referred to, and the most common cell being studied right now would be mesenchymal stem cells. We store those for you. They're being used to treat cardiovascular disease, stroke, MS, Alzheimer's. And a number of these are in phase 3 clinical trials, so it's working. But we want you to have the best possible cells set aside. So I'm not sure how you would use them. It would be sort of based on whatever specific pathology you have in the future. But what we're really interested in, Mike, and I think it's super exciting, and sort of the moonshot that we're working towards is, can I use young Mike cells not to treat a specific disease in the future, but perhaps to prevent it? So can we take, for example, I'll use myself as an example. I'm going to turn 45 years old this year. I have my 38-year-old stem cells banked. Every year I get older, those cells become more precious to me. I want to see, and we're doing work in animals towards this end, can we take my 38-year-old cells, because you can grow them to huge numbers. We're talking hundreds of billions of cells. Can I take my 38-year-old cells, grow them, reintroduce them so I have younger bone, younger connective tissue, younger vasculature, perhaps a younger immune system, and not have a stroke? I'm more interested in not having a stroke than I am in treating one.
Once it's already happened.
Yeah, so health maintenance as opposed to disease treatment is what we're all about at Forever Labs. So that's the work we're doing. Hopefully.
Well, isn't that one of the conundrums with the air quotes of healthcare? Like typically we don't really have a good healthcare system. It's like, once there's a big problem, now you go in, but it's more the benefit is more on the preventative. So how could we prevent things? Well, healthy eating and all those things, but when you get really down to it and you hear about, the bone marrow transplants and the different things like that. Now, if your theory there that you just laid out would be viable, maybe that is not a breakthrough yet, but if and when that happens, wouldn't you want to have the assets in place, your stem cells banked? And so I think that's a really interesting thought. It's like, well, we don't know that it's there, but if you did have a problem, you may need your stem cells to treat it. But maybe if the medical breakthroughs happen where you could use your stem cells to prevent, well, here's your bank. You've got a bank of assets. Well, you got money, you got stocks, bonds, mutual funds, insurance. Why not have another asset in the health category?
Well said. Wow, you're hired. So
right.
that is precisely right. So it's interesting. We all think about our future financial situation, right? We plan for that. We, like you said, we set assets aside, 401ks, Roth IRAs, all of these things, so that when we're older, we're set up financially. I think now we have the ability through Forever Labs, and there are other things out there you can do as well to plan for your future financial health. So yeah, absolutely. It's a really good analogy. We can finally start planning for your future health. And I'm very interested in health maintenance. I'm, again, 45 years old this year. By the time I'm 55 years old, I want to start growing and reintroducing these cells for that purpose, for health maintenance.
Yeah. And is that something where, if that was a decision you made, can you actually do that yourself? Not yourself, but could you go to a doctor and say, here's what I want done? Or is there medical things that would prohibit a doctor from doing that because maybe it's not an approved treatment?
Yeah, good question. So in the United States, there's a couple of things. One, the FDA, there is not an approved use for these cells sort of prophylactically. We can't just use them for health
preventative.
Yeah. But there's also a law now called Right to Treat, where if you did have what a physician would deem as a potentially life-threatening ailment, and these cells could be used to treat that, you can do that. So, I mean, that's the first step, is now you can finally use these cells to treat, let's say, a stroke or cardiovascular disease, et cetera, if your physician deems it is appropriate. So it's really incumbent upon the physician to make that call, not the individual and not Forever Labs. Our role is to make sure that those cells stay safe and viable forever. And so that's what we do. But the regulatory environment is shifting. There's so much work being done using these cells that it's really inevitable. It's coming.
Yeah, it reminds me of the old saying, maybe you've heard this before, about Wayne Gretzky, the famous hockey player, that said, I skate where the puck is going. Because if that's the case, then you know that you're headed in the right direction. Well, right now, you are preparing for what can be and should be headed in the stem cell research, maintenance, preventive, all of that. It's not there now, but if you waited until the news headlines broke and then now started, well, let's just start this lab you're way behind the curve. So this is, there's benefits for this right now. There's that peace of mind there. It's kind of like what I do a lot of work with financial advisors, and they say, hey, Stephen, what do you want retirement to look like? Well, if that's the case, we need to plan now and we need to make these financial moves. Well, in your world, you're saying, what would you like older life, retirement life to look like health-wise? And if that's the case, maybe this is a move you need to make to have this asset in place so that maybe physicians can use it for a variety of needs, preventative or treatment. So that's a really interesting prospect, is you're preparing for what should be coming in the future.
Yep. And from where I sit, it's inevitable. It really is. Once you dive in and look at how much work is being done, it's inevitable. I'll say this. When you have the procedure done and you have these cells set aside, it feels amazing. Just knowing that you have this asset set aside for the future, it's like knowing you have enough for retirement set aside, right? It's just a really good feeling. So I would encourage anyone listening, go to foreverlabs.com and check out what we're up to. Do a deep dive, talk to one of our consultants. It's simple, it's free. The worst that's going to happen is you're going to learn something. So awesome. Highly recommend it.
Well, if you were now let's kind of shift gears a little bit and think about the old skate where the puck is going. If someone is listening to this going, hey, that's great, you've got the stem cell Forever Lab going, but that gives me an idea that I've been noodling around with. So if you were giving some advice to aspiring founders, people that are thinking about, well, where is my industry going? Or here's my idea. Maybe I can't get into Y Combinator today or just yet or ever, but what would some advice be for aspiring founders that you would provide?
Yeah, don't wait. Number one, don't wait. Take the leap, jump, have no fear. And the other thing is don't over-optimize. That's one thing that I learned really early is don't over-optimize. It's really easy to sit around, wait, like, oh, I just want to get better terms, or I'm going to wait until such and such. Don't over-optimize. Just go. That would be my biggest advice to anyone. The other thing is if you can, find a really good co-founder that has strengths that mirror your weaknesses, and someone that you trust, and ideally someone that you really enjoy spending time with, because you're going to spend a lot of it together. And I'm fortunate that my co-founder is one of my closest friends. So that would be my advice. And then solve a problem you're actually passionate about. I can't imagine starting a company where I saw an opportunity, but it wasn't something I cared about. It'd be really hard for me personally to do that. I know a lot of people do, and they make a lot of money, I'm sure. But if you can follow your passion and at the same time create something that people want, which is, sort of I think that's the theme of Y Combinator, is make something people want. You're off to a good start. So if your passions are there, you're making something people want, you have a good co-founder, and your mantra is sort of go, go, go. They always say fail fast. We'll succeed fast too. Go out there, move quickly, and enjoy the ups and downs. There's going to be a lot of them.
And I'll layer in one of the points you made are all excellent, and one of them makes me think about the great book by Bob Berg, The Go Giver. So when you're doing all of those things you mentioned, give and serve and provide great value all the way through the process, but even up front, how can I provide value to my prospective target audience? Because maybe the point about building something people want, how do you figure that out? Well, you gotta go talk to people. You gotta ask. You gotta research. And that's a whole nut to crack right there.
100%. Wow. So that's another one of the big teachings from Y Combinator is to tell you, go be with your customers, be with your customers, be with your customers. I know this is going to be a very condensed version, but there's the famous story of Airbnb went through Y Combinator, and they're talking to the founder of Y Combinator, Paul Graham, and he said, well, where are most of your customers? And they said in New York, and they were in San Francisco at the time talking. And he was like, well, what the hell are you doing here?
Yeah.
Get out there, be with them. And that's the thing, talk to your customers, be with them. I try to go to as many of the Forever Labs procedures as possible, meet people. And it's made me learn so much about what is good, what is bad about the experience. Also, it's led to friendships that I've made with some of our clients that I've left. Some of our investors. One of our clients is a guy named Kevin Love, who's a 5-time NBA All-Star, plays for Cleveland.
Oh, yeah.
Met him at his procedure. Kevin ended up investing in the company, becoming sort of integral to our cap table. And that wouldn't have happened if we don't go to these procedures and meet our customers, be with your customers. That's a great point.
And how about, let's say that someone does that, goes and meets with potential customers, takes notes. Okay, good. Do you check that box and go, cool, I did that? Nope. You know what else that requires you to, or what else you need to do? Continue to learn and listen and iterate and polish and not pivot and change and shiny object and all of that. But it's like, okay, what are they saying? So now I've moved to, step 2, 3, 4, 5, and here's what my customers are saying. Now you cannot, my opinion, you cannot implement and enact every single idea that your customers have for you because they're my customer. No. You take it under advisement and you listen and you think and you plan and you iterate and polish up, because maybe one in however many great ideas that come from your customers, maybe one you're going to implement, maybe some you never would, and maybe some you're going to table. But it's not a matter of good. I checked that box. I listened to my customers and I made that one change. It's ongoing, or else you're going to be skate behind that hockey puck, so to speak.
Yeah, I think a really good point you just made too is to not chase shiny objects, and I have a hard time with that, honestly. And we went through the YC program, and it's not just advice from customers; it's advice from your own team. Your team will give you new ideas, and that's great. It's wonderful, but you can't chase all of them. And we went through the program, and at the end, our pitch was we're a stem cell banking company, but we're also going to be a therapeutics development company, and we're all these big wild ideas we had. And our advisor told us that was awful. He said that we were a houseboat. And I didn't understand what he meant. And he said, a houseboat is an awful house and it's an awful boat. You need to do one thing and do one thing really well. And I think that's really good advice at the start. When you're starting a company, do one thing and do one thing very well. Sort of like Amazon with books, right? Do one thing and do it really well before you start taking on too much. So don't chase those shiny objects. Wait a little bit, get one thing down that you do really well, and you can do some more after that.
Agreed, but one thing that I would say is there's sometimes people are wired to, they just have this bunch of ideas, and they're just flurry of ideas. So what I would say, and since we're just masterminding here, this is just opinion based, but like Michael Gerber says in his book, The E-Myth, take some time to work on your business, not in your business. So let's just say you pick the first Friday of every month to go to your favorite coffee shop, unplug, turn your phone off, don't bring your computer, and sit down with the pad and paper and think. And maybe even you bring your computer only to pull up your idea list that you've been creating, and you sit there and go, okay, here's those ideas from last month. Are these still viable? Oh, this one's dumb. I'm going to hit delete on that one, but this one, that's still pretty good. I'm going to goose that out a few more months or a couple, but you never want to lose the ideas. You just restrain yourself and don't take action on them the minute they cross your mind.
Yeah, I agree with that. So we have no shortage of ideas at Forever Labs. And in fact, we filed 3 patents in the last few years, and they're not around stem cell banking. They're around autologous treatments and therapies and regenerative medicine. So they're under the umbrella of what we do, but a little bit different. And if we had not done that, I'm telling you, it would have been really bad. During the pandemic, our clinics couldn't see at the beginning any of our patients because physicians weren't allowed to perform elective procedures. So we had this big team on our hands. And instead of sitting on our hands, we ended up commercializing one of those patents. We call it Super Shot PRP. And it's now an ancillary revenue stream for our company, and it's helping a lot of people. So, I agree. You've got to keep, if it's every Friday or if it's, for us, it was more organic, but it's a good idea. Yeah, I don't think new ideas are bad and should be shunned or shut down. They should absolutely continue to be part of the
I think that people don't take time to actually think, and I've heard tell, and maybe this is just urban legend, but I've heard that Bill Gates, even to this day, takes a week off and goes off to himself at someplace, no connection, no communication, and just thinks and writes down and recounts and ruminates and thinks and comes back, and now, okay, my head's clear. I've, addressed some of these great new ideas. I've, polished up some ideas that I've had. And I think that too many times we all schedule ourselves so crazy busy that we're reacting to things that come across our path. We're not taking the time to respond or think or do it in the right order because we just are so busy. And so that's a huge takeaway as well. So listen, man, I think this is just so neat. I love your approach and your Forever Labs. What's final thought, and how can people learn more about Forever Labs?
Yeah, as mentioned earlier, go to foreverlabs.com and talk to one of our consultants. No matter who you are, as you age, you lose these stem cells in number and function, and you're going to want to have them later in life in the best possible state. So go to foreverlabs.com, talk to one of our client liaisons, our customer service agents, and they will walk you through, answer any questions you have. It's completely free and complimentary, so why not do it?
Yes, love it. Thank you so much for coming on, Stephen. It was a pleasure talking with you.
Thank you, Mike. I enjoyed it.
You've been listening to Influential Entrepreneurs with Mike Saunders. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit www.influentialentrepreneursradio.com.